Hi everyone, here is today's lesson. It is on the quadratic formula. This is a method for solving quadratic equations. We're continuing to work on solving equations that involve x squared, finding that most problems have two solutions. This is an alternative method in case you choose not to use the other methods, or sometimes you can't factor and completing the square is not very practical. Okay, so what I'm going to first do, I'm going to go back to this, completing the square, a quick review of that, in addition, a review of solving by factoring, which you're probably pretty good at. Next, we go back here. So on this quadratic formula, here's the first example. I don't want you to write anything yet. We actually can use this, solving this equation by factoring or completing the square. Okay, factoring, doing it in blue, x plus 9, x minus 7, you get the solutions x equals 7, x equals and negative 9. Boom. All of you can do that. I know you can. Piece of cake. We could also use completing the square. I'll just review that. We move the 63 over. We leave the blank space. We're going to take 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. We will add that in. Careful, 1 squared is 1, not 2. What we do to one side, we do to the other. So we have x plus 1 squared is equal to 64. Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget the plus and minus there, so we have a positive 8 and a negative 8. So if we now subtract 1, negative 1 plus and minus 8. So that's negative 1 plus 8, which is 7. Negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9. Clearly, we get the same answers. And I mentioned to you before, as we go through and as we learn all the methods, when you have to solve these problems later on, I want you to use the most efficient one. Me personally, I would probably do the factoring. I would not do completing the square. Even though many of you are efficient at it, you can factor this one. It's easiest to be done. You're done with it. You can use the blue method and you're done in about 30 seconds. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this with what's called the quadratic formula. Okay, this is another option. In this particular case, this would be the least efficient method, but I just want to show you how it doesn't matter which way you do it, you're always going to get the same answer. So we are going to get, if we do it correctly, we should get negative 9 and 7 because that's the answer to this equation no matter what method we do. Let me just refer back to this here. First, here are the 3 steps. Sorry, this is page 15 in your packet. Write the equation in standard form, which we've been doing all along. Get everything on the left-hand side, for the most part, for all these. Identify A, B, and C, and just substitute them in, and then just simplify. So really, it's plugging in numbers, simplifying. Just have to be careful because there are a chance to mess up with the numbers there. So that's the thing we just have to be careful of. Okay, so if I do this here, we have everything on the left-hand side. Now we identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 2, C is negative 63. Big number, but we're going to go ahead and use this. By the way, if you want to go ahead and put this in on page 15 in this space right here. It's going to take a lot of space, so try not to write too big, or if you do this on a separate sheet, that's perfectly fine. Okay, now you're just going to go ahead and just plug it in here. Just make sure we're going to follow the order of operations, simplify the numbers. X is equal to the opposite of B, negative B. So B is 2, that becomes negative 2, plus and minus. The reason we have the plus and minus, let me go back to this method here. When we take the square root, remember we took the square root of both sides, we had to write positive 8 and negative 8 because the square root of 64 is both 8 and negative 8. 8 times 8 is 64, and negative 8 times negative 8 is 64 as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. So that's why we have the plus and minus, because we're going to eventually take the square root of this whole thing here. Okay, but I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I am going to write plus and minus. B squared is going to be 2 squared. Okay, you don't need the parentheses here. If it's a negative B, you would, but just be careful with that. Good habit might be to always put in parentheses. Minus 4 times A, which is 1, times B, which is negative 63. All over 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. Okay, and I'm writing on here, kind of froze up here. Let's see if this will actually show up here. That's not good. Smartboard froze. Okay. Okay, let's see if this pen works now. Okay, randomly the pen just stopped working. Yeah. So my finger works. Hold on, I'm gonna go get my other pen. Hold on. All right, don't know how to pause and edit these things, so sorry. But I got the other pen all over 2 times 1. Weird, that other pen just stopped working. Okay, now you're just gonna follow the order of operations. Order of operations says we take care of grouping symbols. All right, now this pen is not working. Unbelievable. Okay, just, all right, hold on. I'm just trying to make through this video. I'm not sure what's happening here. Order of operations says we're going to take care of the parentheses are grouping symbols, so we're going to take care of that. Just got to be careful about that, doing the correct order of operations. So this part here will be 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 63 will be negative 252. It's the square root of that. We are not taking the square root of 4. We've got to do this first. So 4 minus negative 252 becomes 256. So what we have here is x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 256 all over 2. The square root of 256, actually I still have this from before because I had to redo the video. The square root of 256 is 16. So this is what we end up with. Okay? Negative 2 plus or minus 16 divided by 2. I don't want you to leave like that because you can simply go ahead and add and subtract those. So our first equation here is negative 2 plus 16 divided by 2, and negative 2 minus 16 divided by 2. Just like these ones here, we had negative 1 plus 8, which gave us 7, and negative 1 minus 8, which gave us negative 9. We have 2 equations. So negative 2 plus 16 is positive 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And over here, negative 2 minus 16 is negative 18. Divided by 2 is negative 9. So we end up again with the same answers. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so you can see the whole work on here, I think. We end up with 7 and negative 9, just like we did by factoring and completing the square. As you can see, the blue is the shortest, then there's green. The black appears to be the most work there. It is more work, and it will work for every problem you try in quadratic equations with an x squared, but it's not always the most efficient. Now, that being said, there will be some times you'll have to use this method, but it's not always the most efficient. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go back to, I'm going to show you one more example, but first I'm going to go back to this page right here, solving quadratics by completing a square. We did 13 and 14. If you recall, I had you, if you've got your packet, go to page 14. I had you we skipped together number 8. And the reason is, if I were to go ahead and do this out, this is completing the square, we would have to get 5x squared plus 14x, put the negative, or the 3 is over here. But in order to add something in this blue space, the a value has to be 1. So we'd have to divide everything by 5. So we would get x squared plus 14 over 5x equals 3 over 5. We're not going to convert them to decimals. Now, as far as what goes in that blue space, that's going to be annoying because we've got to do 14 over 5 divided by 2, which is actually 14 tenths, which we would simplify first, probably to make our lives a little bit easier. 7/5, then we square that, which is going to be 49 over 25 plus 49 over 25. So we don't want to worry about this. We got fractions because really inside our parentheses now, we're going to have this. We'd have x minus 7/5, and no one wants to do that. That's why we skip that. That would not be practical for using completing the square. It just is not efficient. It's not worth anyone's time to bother that because there's probably a 75% chance you're going to make a mistake with the fractions. probably equally as high that I would make the same mistake. So I'm not going to bother doing that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead though and do this example here because that's one where I would probably use the quadratic formula. Maybe I didn't write that out. Okay, I didn't here. So that was what? 5x squared plus 14x. Now we would get this 3 over the left-hand side, so we would subtract it. Remember, the quadratic formula is the opposite of b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now you can just watch this one here, just because this is not on your page. Okay, so we're just start identifying. So a is 5, b is 14, and c is -3. Let me make sure I have that correct. Yep. Yep. You'll just go ahead and plug it in here. X equals the opposite of b becomes -14 plus and minus the square root of b squared, which is 14 squared. You don't need the parentheses, but you may choose to do that. Again, it won't matter if b is positive, but if b is negative, you definitely will need the parentheses. Minus 4 times 5 times -3. Now about this here, all over 2a, be careful, it's not 25, it's 2 times 5. Now what I would encourage you to do, you have to do this first inside the parentheses. Oh, now it's freezing up, okay. I would like to see, I'm more than happy if you put that entire thing in your calculator. I don't really care what 14 squared is. I don't care what 4 times 5 times -3 is. Use your calculator. So what I'm going to recommend, and I'd like you to do this now, just to get practice, put in your calculator, just put in, notice here, I'm not going to put in the square root. 14 minus 4 times 5 times -3. You don't even need parentheses around this stuff here, just because you have the time sign. Might want to do this. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. You're going to do 14 squared. Again, you don't need the parentheses, but it might help you. Minus 4 times, hit the time sign, a, which is 5, times -3. You don't need parentheses here at the end. That's 256. Okay? Because then you don't have to worry about, I'm not sure if I'll go back here. You don't have to worry about, do you put this in as a -4 or a subtraction sign? Let the calculator do all that. Now, I don't want you to take the square root because sometimes, now 256 will end up being a whole number, but let's say it was 250. You take the square root of it, it's going to be a decimal. We are not going to have any decimal answers in our problems here. Okay? Let me go here. So x is equal to -14 plus and minus the square root of 256 over 10. Okay? The square root of 256 is 16. So we end up with -14 plus and minus 16 all over 10. So that gives us two equations. X equals -14 plus 16 over 10. I would like you to simplify that. Leave your answer as a fraction, not as a decimal. So in your calculator, you can put in -14 plus 16, then divided by 10. So I'll just do that here. -14 plus 16. Now, just be careful. Don't do divided by 2 or divided by 10, because it's going to divide just the 16 by 10. So what I like generally do, -14 plus 16. I'm not a huge parenthesis guy. I'll hit enter, then divided by 10. You get a decimal, hit math fraction. So it's 1/5. So x is equal to 1/5. By the way, that does not mean the other answer is -1/5. No, you have to do that out. So I'll do the blue. X is equal to -14 minus 16 divided by 10. -14 minus 16 is -30. -30 divided by 10 is -3. And I will put that in the calculator just to show you. Now, if you choose to, some of you may choose to do this, -14 minus 16, parentheses, divided by 10. There's your -3. Others may choose, remember I've showed you that alpha, second quit. alpha y equals the option with number 1 with the nice neat fractions. So you may choose to do negative 14 plus, minus 16 in this case, minus 16. Oops, I meant to hit the down. So then divided by 10, you get negative 3. Okay, so there is your another example. That one here, you get answers that are kind of normal, negative 3, 1/5, but you would not want to do that one by completing the square. Factoring, it's got the 5. Some of you are not too keen. Oops, wrong sheet. Not too keen on the factoring when you have the 5 there. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. And I don't mind that. All right, so you are going to do the quadratic formula. You notice here, I want you to practice on this page here. Just go ahead and practice with these ones here. Notice here, A is, in this case here, A is going to be 6, B is negative 11, C is negative 10. Be careful with this. Again, when you do this, go ahead and put this into your calculator, okay? And I want you to go ahead and do that. Do not just hit the square root. You can try it by putting the square root. And let me go back here. But I want to warn you, and I don't know what to do with the answer key. If the square root is not a whole number, we are not going to use decimals. No, so uncool using decimals there. So if I go back here, if you wanted to, with this one here, if you want to try this second square root, what was it, b squared? So it's 14 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 3, worked out to be a whole number. Okay. Let's just say it was this. I'm going to kind of change this up here. Let's say the problem was 14 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 2. That's a decimal. I do not want decimals. We'll talk about that later. I think these on this page are going to end up as whole numbers mostly. Let me just see here. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And I don't know what I did with the x squared minus 2x plus 1. I think most of these will be whole number when you take the square root, so it's okay. If not, just try to simplify the radicals. We'll talk about this. We're going to do more of this on Friday. Okay? Your classwork homework is page 15. Okay? We did this one together. If you didn't write it down yet, go ahead and do that. But your homework is going to just to be to complete this page here. So 1 through 6, just this page only. Okay? Thanks for watching this. Get that done. Enjoy your snow day and remote day. Remote day today, remote day Wednesday. Let me just find out how to turn this off. Thanks for watching.